So there's this video that's recently been on G-Man and a few other videos, channels from Christians, titled something to the effect of, "This video atheists don't want you to see." As if it's this, oh my god, atheism has been defeated, atheism is conspiracy, and if people watch it, it's gonna, debunk atheism and atheism is gonna die, so they don't want you to see it, Yeah, well, I saw it, and I've made a video about it. So, without any further ado, let's begin.
My name's Jennifer Fulwiler. I was a lifelong atheist.
Tip-off number one that you're probably full of shit is when you start off with a sentence like, "I was a lifelong atheist." Who says things like that? Who uses that kind of sentence structure? When I became an atheist and I did my deconversion story, did I say, I was a half-lifelong atheist, Christian, now I'm an atheist? No, that's... You know who says things like that?
Now, I was the last guy in the world you ever would have thought would have become a Christian, because as I grew up, I didn't go to church. I was a devout atheist. I was way too smart to believe in God.
I never believed in God, not even as a child. When my dad would come read books to me at night, I believe I was in 4th or 5th grade, and our nightly reading was Carl Sagan's Cosmos. So I was very much raised on a diet of science and reason and evidence-based rational thought.
Tip-off number two. When you say things like Carl Sagan's Cosmos, and by extension understanding the universe around you, is what makes you an atheist. Now, as we're all aware, there are plenty of Christians out there that believe in evolution and, all of the good stuff that scientists have been able to prove to be true. And, still be a believer. Still believe in God or any other gods. It's comments like this that just kind of make me look at this and go, yeah, you're full of shit, lady. Yep. It's either your willful ignorance or your willingness to make a buck to use, straw men like that.
You believe what you can prove. I believe that I have hands because I can see them.
Yep, that's exactly what the scientific atheism is about. If you can see it, that means it exists. Dumb bitch.
And so this very rational worldview always made sense to me on a fundamental level. Before I got to the point that I could really start researching faith with an open mind, and so this very rational worldview, researching faith with an open mind, rational worldview with an open mind. Rational open mind.
Should I go into detail about how different having a rational mind and an open mind are? An open mind, especially if it's too open, allows you to be able to believe anything. But a rational mind is open to new things, but you need to have a good reason and good evidence for it.
Something had to happen. And for me, that occurred after my first child was born. I looked down and thought, what is this baby? And I thought, well, from a pure atheist materialist perspective, he is a collection of randomly evolved chemical reactions.
Oh, come the fuck on. Seriously? Not only is that not how atheists like myself look at a baby, that's not even fucking scientifically accurate.
And I realized if that's true, that all the love that I feel for him, that it's all nothing more than chemical reactions in our brains.
Right, because it makes so much more sense to have a supernatural entity that is living outside of our universe transcend the barriers between these two universes, touch your brain and make the chemicals react in a certain way. Yeah, that makes so much more sense. Dumb bitch.
And I looked down at him and I realized that's not true.
An argument from consequences. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it's not true.
I got my books about Buddhism and, and about every religion except for Christianity, basically. I assumed that anything could be true except for Christianity.
Why would you think that? Why, of all the religions out there, that you would decide that Christianity is the one that makes the least amount of sense? Now, don't get me wrong, I find all religions to be about equally as possible or plausible. But Christianity, for the most part, has done the best job of making a case for its existence. I mean, if you look at all the advances of in the apologetics, Christianity has done a pretty damn good job. There's definitely worse religions that you could say were not true.
And my husband, who considered himself a non-practicing Christian, said you might want to start with the one major world religion whose founder claimed to be God.
Jesus was not the founder of Christianity. That would belong to the disciples, the people that followed him, and Paul, most in particular, because pretty much Christianity owes its existence to Paul and the Emperor Constantine. But still, Jesus was not a founder. Jesus was just as much of a founder for the religion as Zeus or anybody else that starts a religion. It's the followers that start it, not him. So, failure right there.
After all, that's a really easy claim to disprove if it's not true.
Bull fucking shit, that's an easy claim to disprove. I mean, let's look at Christianity now. We have them saying that he was a spirit and a human and God at the same time, and that when he died, he came back to life and he was still God. He's partly God and human form at the same time. He's 100% God and 100% human. They keep moving the goalpost by changing what it is to be a God. You can't disprove it to begin with. How the fuck is that the easiest thing to disprove?
And I thought, well, that's a fair point.
Well, you should have thought a little bit harder.
I was such a through and through atheist
I was a devout atheist.
that I have to admit I was ignorant of all these great Christian thinkers. What about Thomas Aquinas? What about Augustine? What about Descartes? I mean, all of these great thinkers throughout history were not only theists, but Christians.
What about Sophocles, Aristotle, Plato, Confucius, Mark Twain? So many great thinkers that I can't even think because I'm not that smart. All these people were not Christians. I mean, are you just going to ignore them and just go with Thomas Aquinas just because he was a believer? Little inconsistent.
You have this guy named Jesus who comes from a lower class region,
which years of archaeological studies have shown didn't exist at the time.
gains a bunch of lower class followers.
For those of you that find this kind of compelling, I want you to go look up the mythological stories of yore and look up how many stories start off with someone starting off as a small, humble settings and rising his way up to fame, to glory, to godhood, to kingdomship, etc. This isn't exactly a breaking ground or anything.
And ends up being executed by the Romans. And yet in droves, you see thousands and thousands of Jews giving up these traditions that they had held dear for thousands of years.
Actually, what's funny about that is right at the beginning of this new formation of a cult, there was an incredibly small amount of people that actually were in there. They've done a lot. I don't even remember the population studies and how they determined this. I saw this in a compilation of Richard Carrier books, and which sourced a couple of other studies and whatnot. But it was very, 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 very small population, even past the second century AD, because a lot of Jews found it to be heretical, because that is not what the scriptures said would happen. It was a different kind of Messiah that was going to rise up. And so many people were like, no, this isn't the Messiah we were promised, because the scriptures, and we've been hearing this for thousands of years, it is going to be something else. It wasn't until you have the Emperor Constantine that forced it to be the religion that they were that's when they changed it. So it wasn't because of Jesus, but it was because it was becoming the major religion. So, congratulations.
And the people who joined in on this new religion, there was no benefit for them. It was a persecuted religion. People who joined this religion didn't tend to work out too well. They tended to lose social status and often face death.
Most of the claims of the Christian persecution are highly in question or have been proven outright to not be true. Or if they were Christians and they were persecuted, they were likely persecuted for doing other things, and people just claimed it was because they were Christians, such as, pissing off the Romans or trying to start a war. You don't have to be a Christian to piss off the Romans when you're trying to tell them that your king is somebody else, or that you're not going to live under the Roman rule, or that you're tired of the Roman rule, etc. But regardless, that's irrelevant, because you say that there is nothing that Christianity has to offer. I believe an eternity in heaven is a pretty good damn offer to take. Somebody was starting a religion and they said, hey, you're going to be an eternity in heaven, living in happiness and joy, and you're living away from this terrible life. Yeah, that's a pretty damn good offer.
But I wasn't yet convinced and ready to become a Christian. And so I started a blog. I just threw out every hard question I could think of. I just put it all out there on the blog. And as I would watch the atheists and the Christians go back and forth and debate, I realized we atheists, we don't have the lock on reason that I thought we did. But what I saw with the Christians was they had that too. They had all the knowledge of science and material world that we atheists did, but yet they had the total picture of the human experience of love and triumph and hope, and they could articulate that in a way that the atheists couldn't.
Ah, of course, I get it now. Atheists and Christians had the knowledge of the universe and whatnot, but Christians could say prettier words. That's enough to be convinced of a religion. Dumb bitch.
It wasn't until after I had made the intellectual decision to become a Christian.
She made an intellectual decision. Because we all know that's how Christianity, according to many fundamentalists, is achieved. Salvation through intellectual decisions. Oh wait, no, that's supposed to be by faith and grace and all that stuff. It's a gift from God. That's gonna be weird to explain to the Christians. But it's weird because, G-Man, and probably I'm sure other Christians as well, have posted this up and they're like, yeah, another atheist converted to Christianity. Suck it, atheists! But yet, it kind of flies against kind of their fundamentalist belief systems. Are they so happy that they kind of ignore that?
That I think I finally believed it in my heart.
It pumps blood. That's it. Dumb bitch.
When I set my pride aside...
Lady, how many tips are you going to give to the rest of the world that you were never really an atheist? I mean, no atheist really talks about their pride. It's pride that stops them from believing in God. It's not that they don't believe it because they don't have enough evidence for it. Dumb bitch.
And said, okay, I feel like I'm talking to myself, but Jesus, I want a relationship with you. I want to know you, even though I don't know how to go about doing that.
It's kind of weird that for a deity that wants so badly to get into a relationship with us, that he created us, and then, sent a son, blah, 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 that we have to go through such extraordinary leaps of, literally leaps of faith to have this relationship with him. Why am I working so hard? Why do I have to do so much weird leg work and have to abandon logic and rationality to believe in faith, etc., and abandon what it is that I understand about how the reality works to accept the possibility of his existence just so I can have a relationship with him? How desperate is he to have a relationship with me when I have to do all the work?
This peace entered my life, this joy, the way my whole being was transformed. There was just no question that this is somebody real.
Yeah, and that's never, ever, ever been said with Islam or any other fucking major religion that's ever fucking existed. I think of the scripture, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And then I realize, oh yes, this woman is so full of shit that it's just billowing out of her mouth every time she speaks. And the reason why that is because she's trying to sell her books, and she's going on tours and doing things of that nature. And it's obvious she's trying to sell, trying to make some money, she's trying to make a buck. Now, I can't say if she was never an atheist, but by God, when you listen to what she says, it sounds like the Kurt Camerons and Lee Strobels, trying to say, oh, I was an atheist, I was a hardcore atheist. And as if it's supposed to help, the people relate. It sounds more like they're speaking to the Christians as opposed to the actual atheists themselves. And so I have a hard time believing her, and I just think that she's full of shit. And so for those of you that are mirroring this video with the title of "This video atheists don't want you to see," it's basically the equivalent of those ads you see. This one weird trick for baldness. This lady's skin treatment is upsetting doctors, and she's ripping her old skin off, and it show her being younger or whatever. Or this weird law is passing in your state now. It's just not impressive. We're not stupid. We know this lady's full of shit. We know this lady is trying to sell her book, etc. So it's not convincing. Nice try. I'm going to bed now because I have to rest my brain. This is the Atheist Chef signing off. Peace. Lifelong atheist. Christian. Now I'm an atheist. No, that's... You know who says things like that?
Now, I was the last guy in the world you ever would have thought would have become a Christian, because as I grew up, I didn't go to church. I was a devout atheist. I was way too smart to believe in God.
I never believed in God, not even as a child. When my dad would come read books to me at night, for Fulwiler, I was a lifelong atheist.
Tip-off number one that you're probably full of shit is when you start off with a sentence like, I was a lifelong atheist. Who says things like that? Who uses that kind of sentence structure? When I became an atheist and I did my deconversion story, did I say I was a
I believe I was in 4th or 5th grade, and our nightly reading was Carl Sagan's Cosmos. So I was very much raised on a diet of science and reason and evidence-based rational thought.
Tip-off number two. When you say things like Carl Sagan's Cosmos, and by extension understanding the universe around you, is what makes... So there's this video that's recently been on G-Man and a few other videos, channels from Christians, titled something to the effect of, "This video atheists don't want you to see." As if it's this, oh my god, atheism has been defeated, atheism is conspiracy, and if people watch it, it's gonna, debunk atheism, and atheism's gonna die, so they don't want you to see it, Yeah, well, I saw it, and it's, well, I've made a video about it. So, without any further ado, let's begin.
My name's Jen.